have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am
I am
tired,
tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
It's Wednesday. How about it? Middle of the week, Wednesday, May 14. And this is the Bill Press Show. We are coming to you live this morning on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Whether you're on Free Speech or TawkrTV, we welcome you to the program, coming to you from our nation's capital this Wednesday morning with all the news of the day, and ready to hear your comments and take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Ready to read your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. President Obama off to New York City today. He's got a couple of fundraisers for the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee tonight. And this afternoon, he'll be giving a big speech on transportation funding issues. This is, after all, Infrastructure Week. Karl Rove in a lot of hot water today after on May 8th, it just finally leaked out, he suggested at a conference out in Los Angeles that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton suffered brain damage when she fell at her home, which is really funny today because at the time, remember, they were suggesting that Hillary faked that fall and there was nothing wrong with her. She was just trying to get out of testifying in front of the Benghazi committee, and now they're saying that she has brain damage and therefore may not be healthy enough to run for President of the United States. Karl Rove trying to backtrack from that a little bit, but he still insists that she has perhaps a serious health problem. And Richard Clark, George Bush's national security expert, says there's nothing more to learn about Benghazi and we should just drop the whole thing. All that we're going to talk about. Take your calls on this morning on The Bill Press Show. Good to have you with us.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Richard Clark, our terrorism expert, says there's nothing more to learn about Benghazi. Republicans ought to just drop the whole thing. Hey, good morning, everybody. Wednesday morning, May 14. Great to see you today. It's going to be a great day. I just feel it. And we're going to start it off by making it a great day here, by bringing you up to date on all the news of the day here. Whether it's happening in Washington, D.C., that's where you'll find us. Whether it's happening around the country or around the globe, you got it. We'll bring you up to date on all of that, and then most importantly, give you a chance to sound off and express your opinion here on the Bill Press Show. You can do so by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. You can do so by sending us your comments on Twitter. So many of you do every day. We love that at BP Show. And on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Appreciate your befriending us on Facebook. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station all across this great land of ours, of course. Also coming to you live on the Progressive Voices channel on the TuneIn app. Just download that app, go to the TuneIn, and then find the Progressive Voices channel. We're there for you. And on the video side, we are simulcast on Free Speech TV. Got a satellite dish, DirecTV. There we are. Off the on Free Speech TV, and then worldwide on your electronic device at TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. So look, I got to tell you, your local progressive talk radio station, the TuneIn app, right, Progressive Voices Network, Free Speech TV, or TawkrTV, there's no damn excuse for not being able to follow the show.
That's right.
I mean, there's just no excuse.
That's right.
All right.
Get after it.
There it is. So be there and stay there. Or else. Our team, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Good morning.
Good morning.
God, we're on so many platforms. It just makes me dizzy.
I know.
I'm trying to keep up with all of them, right?
Look, that's how we like
it. Got to bounce from one to the other, right? Alicia Cruz here. Wherever we are, the phones come to the same place to Alicia Cruz. She is there waiting for you. And Cyprian Bolding, who's got the video booming out from our little broadcast studio here with Cyprian at the controls. Sometimes you get a little nervous. He's got that.
Watch out, the door is not locked today.
You never know.
I know.
There it is. You got to be careful with that. You got to be careful with that.
It was a very moving ceremony at we had our briefing with Jay Carney at 12:30 yesterday, and then an hour or so later, a very moving ceremony in the East Room of the White House where President Obama presented the nation's highest award for a member of the military, the Medal of Honor, to Army Sergeant Kyle White.
Today we present our nation's highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor, to Sergeant Kyle J. White.
And the president, as he always does in these ceremonies, recounted how it happened, what went down, and why Kyle White deserves that Medal of Honor.
Kyle ran out once more to Kane's side. Kyle ripped off his own belt for a tourniquet and soon got his hands on a working radio. The voice of Charlie 1-6 Romeo came into base. Crouching behind that lone tree, Kyle began calling in airstrikes to take out enemy positions.
Boy, the heroism of these people that I've seen there at the White House, it's just incredible. Brings tears to your eyes, and honor, certainly. Well deserved. He's not the only one, and the Defense Department, as Jay Carney pointed out yesterday at a briefing, they always have a process of reviewing people who are nominated or success, and they review all of that, bring them to the White House, and then just a few of them representing all the brave men and women who've served in Iraq and Afghanistan get that nation's highest award.
I love those ceremonies.
Yeah, they're very.
I mean, they are true reminders of what kind of people we have serving our military.
Yeah, absolutely. The best of the best. Coming up this morning, David Jackson joins us from the White House. He covers the White House for USA Today. Joe Cirincione, our foreign policy guru from the Ploughshares Fund, will be in a little bit later. And this morning, we sample a lot of different liquids here on the show. We've had tastings for scotch and for whiskey and
Gin.
bourbon and gin.
And wine.
Wine and beer. Not vodka yet, huh?
No, we have no vodka yet.
Well, but this morning we're going to take it down a notch or so. But I'm very excited. We're going to have tastings for coffee because in our building right here is rated the 5th best coffee shop in the entire country.
How about that?
Peregrine.
Right downstairs.
Right. Yeah, right downstairs. So we're going to get them to come up a couple of floors and tell us all about their finest coffee. And Karl Rove, suffering brain damage. Did you hear? But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We will start at the sports desk where the Washington Wizards showed that they still had a little life left in them last
Wizards?
night. They destroyed the Indiana Pacers, 102-79.
That's a blowout like I've never seen.
It's a total blowout. Led by Marcin Gortat, the center. He had 31 points, 16 rebounds. He was an absolute monster last night. And they won 102-79. They are still down 3-2 in that series against the Pacers. Pacers just need one more win to close it out. Wizards are bringing the game back here, bringing the series back here.
Everybody had written them off. Everybody, including everybody in this studio. Had written them off. Yeah, absolutely.
When you go down 3-1, you're in a hole.
I know, but
so
man, they really.
Like in a hole. Meanwhile, the Clippers lost last night to the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder take a lead in that series, 3-2 as well.
So tomorrow night, big game here in Washington.
Big game.
Yeah.
Big game. It is do or die from here on out for the Wizards. The ABC News headquarters in New York has a new name. It is the Barbara Walters Building.
No.
They are naming it after Barbara Walters. She's coming up on her retirement. Friday is her last day on The View. And so as a thank you to Barbara for all of her years of service to ABC News, they have renamed the ABC News headquarters the Barbara Walters Building.
I hope they don't rename the Fox Building the Karl Rove Building.
I don't think that's going to happen. And an interesting story out of the Pentagon, an unprecedented move. They are trying to transfer Private Chelsea Manning, formerly Bradley Manning, to a civilian prison so that she can go ahead with her treatment for gender disorder. To go ahead and move forward with a gender reassignment, to take the hormones, to have the procedures done. It's never been done before, but the Pentagon is actually supportive of that decision, wants to make it happen, and so they're trying to actually move her to a civilian prison.
That's applaudable, right? Whatever. What they really should do is release her from prison, right?
Exactly.
Totally release her from prison because the documents that she released told us a lot about what our government is up to and didn't do any harm whatsoever. There we go. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed, Karl Rove. Can you here? You got to see this in context. Karl Rove's comments about Hillary Clinton, so perhaps having brain damage. I mean, it really shows, for one thing, how obsessed the Republican Party is, leading Republicans are, with Hillary Clinton, and how totally panicked they are about possibly having to run against her in 2016 because all of this stuff is coming out. Look, we don't know whether she's going to run or not. I hope she does. I think if she does, she wins. All the way. First female president of the United States. But she could decide not to run. But at any rate, Republicans are panicked at the thought they're going to have to run against her. Who do they have? Sarah Palin? Hello, right? So they're throwing all this crap out there, and they've been doing it for months now. They brought up the whole healthcare thing about 1993. It was Hillary's fault. She was terrible. She didn't present it. She didn't sell it well enough. That's why we didn't get healthcare back in 1993. Not that Republicans would have supported it anyhow. And of course, Benghazi. What do you think the Select Committee on Benghazi is all about that John Boehner just appointed? It's not about finding out anything about Benghazi. It's an excuse to get Hillary to have to testify again. It's an excuse it's a way of reminding the American people over and over again that Hillary was Secretary of State when we had an attack on our embassy. As I said at the very top of the show, Richard Clark yesterday, President Bush's national security advisor, made the point that under every administration, under Reagan, under Clinton, under Bush, under every administration, embassies are attacked and diplomats are killed. End of story. Stop talking about Benghazi. Anyway, they won't stop talking about it because, again, it's a way of getting at Hillary. They even brought Monica Lewinsky and the blue dress out of the closet as one more slam on Hillary. And now the latest is Karl Rove at a joint appearance in Los Angeles on May 8th with Robert Gibbs, former press secretary for Barack Obama. Karl Rove suggested, according to page 6 of the New York Post, as first reported on page 6, that Hillary Clinton may have suffered brain damage when she fell at her home a year or so ago, right after when she was scheduled, had been called to testify in front of Darrell Iss's committee up on the Hill. And now, then, the immediate uproar about Karl Rove's comments, a new low in American politics. But he shows up on Fox again yesterday morning with Bill Hemmer to say, no. That's not really what I said.
I didn't say she had brain damage. She had a serious health episode.
Instead, a serious health episode. According to page 6, by the way, just a second, what Karl Rove actually said was that she had, here it is. She spent 30 days in the hospital. This is from someone who was at that May 8th event in Los Angeles. That Karl Rove said, 30 days in the hospital, and when she reappears, she's wearing glasses that are only for people who have traumatic brain injury. We need to know what's up with that. So maybe he didn't say, quote, brain damage, but traumatic brain injury.
He's getting awfully close.
Yeah. By the way, it was only 3 days in the hospital. But why let the facts get in the way? Why not say 30 days? Multiply it by 10, right? Yeah, when you're Karl Rove, you can get away with it. And Karl Rove, again, makes the point, this is all fair game in politics.
My point was that Hillary Clinton wants to run for president, but she would not be human if this didn't enter in as a consideration. And my other point is this will be an issue in the 2016 race, whether she likes it or not. Every presidential candidate is asked for all of their health records by the New York Times. They turn them over to and vice presidential candidates. They turn them over to a battery of doctors, and they examine them in detail.
Yeah, totally change the subject. Yeah, we all know that, Carl.
Everybody says she's going to run, and she probably is. But I would bet it's a more complicated calculation than we might think because, look, she'll be 69 by the time of the 2016 election. She will be 77 if she serves 2 terms, and this ends up being an issue.
Yeah, he's totally trying to change the subject, right, as to what everybody running for president has to give their medical records. No. You said she has serious brain damage, and there's no evidence for that. The doctors examined her at the time and said she's perfectly fine, right? There was a serious question that with the fall, she may have had a blood clot that could go to her brain and cause a stroke or something. That's why they put her in the hospital under observation. It didn't happen, thank God. Perfectly healthy. She gets out of it. Karl Rove raising this. Why is he raising this? Because he's trying to undercut Hillary Clinton and basically scare her out of running for president in 2016. And here's what's really, really low about that. Remember at the time of her fall, what were Republicans saying then? She's faking it. Oh, yeah. Then they accused her. There's nothing wrong with her. She just said that she had a fall, said that there might be a medical problem in order to avoid having to testify on Benghazi. So she was a phony at the time, and now she's hiding the fact that she has serious brain damage. I mean, this is just so totally disgusting on the part of Karl Rove. So I ask you, what ought to happen to Karl Rove? 866-55-PRESS. What are we going to do about this? I think Fox News ought to fire his ass. No doubt about it. I mean, I think that is a new low in American politics, and he's their commentator. Remember, he totally blew it on election night. The worst. The worst,
That's
right?
such a mess.
Refusing to accept the fact and embarrassing Fox News, if possible, by refusing to accept the fact that Barack Obama had indeed won Ohio and indeed been reelected president of the United States. And after that, they suspended him and then brought him back. And now he accuses the First Lady with zero evidence of having brain damage. I don't think you should be able to get away with that. As an individual private citizen, fine. But as a commentator on Fox News, I don't think she should be able to get away with that kind of a low-level attack and continue on Fox News. 866-55-PRESS. Karl Rove. Yeah, as I said yesterday, there's somebody in this equation that's got brain damage. It's not Hillary Clinton. Let's talk about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they had malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're going to do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, lawyer? He said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity. And one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him. Because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Karl Rove at it again, leading the Republican charge against Hillary Clinton, accusing her of having, he didn't use the word brain damage, so just a serious traumatic brain injury. Oh, yeah, that's pretty close, right? And pretty low. Your comments at 866-55-PRESS, Peter?
Couple of quick comments on Twitter, at BP Show. Michael Peterson says one word for Karl Rove would be dirtbag. That is a polite term for him. Nasty little man. One other quick comment. When you talk about traumatic brain injury, raising one eyebrow brings in this point. A traumatic brain injury is brain damage in its nearly most severe form.
Yeah.
So when you talk about
right.
severe brain injury, you are usually talking about brain damage. So semantics on Karl Rove's part.
And by the way, this is not something really new for Karl Rove. Way back in 2000, when John McCain clobbered George Bush in New Hampshire, they went down to South Carolina. If you remember, then the rumors started circulating that John McCain had suffered brain damage because he was held as a prisoner of war so long that he was mentally unbalanced. Wonder who started those rumors in the George Bush camp. Kevin is out in Chicago. Hello, Kevin. What do you think? Good morning.
Hey, Bill, good morning. Yeah, hey, did you ever hear the phrase diarrhea of the mouth? There's Karl Rove. I mean, this is what this guy, to stay relevant, he's got to be just a jackass, bigger than he ever was. But you know what? The only thing we need to do is just continually point out, how inconsequential and how irrelevant he is, how he totally blew it because, let's face it, he figured he would pull another, election theft.
Yep.
And it backfired on him, and, he's just a jerk. But the only way you combat that guy is just to continually point it out. And let's face it, to the majority of intelligent Americans, he's an inconsequential POS.
Yeah, you know what, Kevin? Well said, absolutely, yeah. Now, Karl Rove did think he could pull off another Florida, right? Steal another election, and it didn't work. Megyn Kelly exposed him on that night. More comments about Karl Rove coming up, 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about your next venture.
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune in to the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Yeah, politics is hardball, as they say. But the question is, can you really just say anything about anybody? Particularly when you're on national television, a paid commentator on national television, former top advisor to a president of the United States, and get away with it? I mean, you can just say something that is factually not true. That, as Karl Rove said, that Hillary Clinton spent 30 days in the hospital, when in fact she spent 3 days, that she came out wearing special glasses that only people with serious brain injury wear. What kind of glasses are those? Right? I mean, he's just, what's he doing? Pulling this stuff out of his ass? I mean, where's that come from, right? Or that she has serious brain, or however you want to say it, brain damage, serious traumatic brain injuries, suffered that, or whatever, when in fact it is simply not true. And medical experts said at the time she was in fine health. She did not suffer a stroke. She did not have a blood clot or whatever. Tell me, what do we do about this, Karl Rove? 866-55-PRESS, 866-55-77-377. And what does it say about the Republican obsession with perhaps having to run against Hillary Clinton? Or your comments again at BP Show on Twitter. Yesterday, there was a reaction to Karl Rove from several fronts. I was really disappointed because I was all prepared and I had my hand up to ask the question of Jay Carney about Karl Rove, but Peter Alexander from NBC News beat me to it. Jay Carney was ready with a quip on Karl Rove. He was prepared for this one.
Here's what I would say about cognitive capacity, which is that Dr. Rove might have been the last person in America on election night to recognize and acknowledge that the president had been won re-election, including the state of Ohio. So we'll leave it at that.
That's a good point. Yes, Karl Rove. I love the fact you called him Dr. Rove. Dr. Rove. Right. Remember election night 2012 when all the networks had all called him President Obama re-election. Fox did not do so because Karl Rove stopped the clock and said, no, you cannot say that. It's not, no. I know. I have my numbers. Remember, it was embarrassing. He said, I know. Ohio is still up in the air. Up
One
for
of the grabs.
most
cringy moments of live television we have ever seen.
Because these numbers are wrong. And Megyn Kelly, co-anchor at the time, says, let's find out. And she walked down the hall to where the experts were, the people who were getting information from the field, and she says, Karl says this. What's your response? And they said, Karl is basically freaking crazy. Yeah, that he is dead wrong. Megyn Kelly comes back, well, she was on camera the whole time, and says, Karl, you're wrong. Obama's reelected. But even after that, they kept him on the air. And yesterday, and Rove was supposed to be the guy with his little whiteboard, the savvy guy, that really had the facts, right? This is total irresponsible, disgusting kind of politics. It should not be tolerated, not even on Fox News, I would say. Again, your comments at 866-55-PRESS.
There's a great piece of Politico that Dylan Byers wrote asking if Karl Rove is the next Dick Morris.
Right.
Dick Morris, who has made a career of just saying whatever he feels like saying, whether it's based in truth or not.
No.
He just says whatever.
Exactly. No factual basis behind it. And finally, Dick Morris, they fired him.
Yes.
Because they said, you just cannot be on the air and just make this stuff up.
Right. Just say whatever you want to say.
Well,
and so now here you have Rove
doing the same thing.
So what happens?
Doing the very same thing. Our good friend Igor Volsky at Think Progress did a good job on this yesterday. They put out some examples from the past where Karl Rove, this is sort of a recurring theme for Karl Rove, right? That if he doesn't like somebody, he accuses them of having serious brain injury using different phrases, of course, like he did for Hillary. I mentioned the John McCain thing. I mean, that was really disgusting. Here's a man, whatever you think about John McCain's politics, who is an American hero, serving all of that time and never giving up and defying the Vietnamese when he was shot down and kept in that prison for, 7 or 8 years? I forget now exactly. But at any rate, for that, Karl Rove in the South Carolina primary in 2000, everybody credited Karl Rove with starting this rumor that John McCain was somehow left mentally unbalanced by that experience because he's been in solitary confinement for so long. In his own book, this again reported from Think Progress, Karl Rove wrote a book, Courage and Consequence. I'm sorry. Yeah, not compassion for Karl Rove. Sorry. How could I say that? Courage and Consequence. He noted that he thought Howard Dean at the time in 2004 looked like a madman, he called him. In a 2008 interview with GQ magazine, Karl Rove suggested that a Republican lawyer down in Alabama who had accused Karl Rove of dirty tricks, he called him a complete lunatic. So, this is it's kind of a thing with Karl Rove, all right? I do think about from Dallas, Wayne Slater, who wrote the book about Karl Rove called Bush's Brain. Yeah, right. Maybe it should have been Bush's Brain Damage. I'm not sure. And on that point, John, Karl Rove's going to be subject of attack by the late comics and, of course, Jon Stewart could not resist last night, but making a very important point yet again about Karl Rove.
Unanswered questions, an attempted cover-up. My God, it's Brain Ghazi!
Brain Ghazi!
How many?
Love that phrase.
How many synapses? We need the truth! Brain Ghazi! Just one quick question before you go there, House MD.
House MD.
When did you start caring so much about the brain fitness of those who have to hold the Oval Office? Perhaps, I assume, it was right after your boss fell and banged his head after losing a battle with a pretzel.
Bush and the pretzel.
Dude blacks out. Next thing you know, he's starting an unprovoked war in Iraq. Now he spends his days eating applesauce and painting his feet.
Oh, that's too good.
That is so
brilliant.
brutal. I'm telling you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Karl Rove. Let's not talk about brain damaged presidents. Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's just. But yeah, as somebody,
it is as silly as someone coming out, a Democratic strategist.
Yes.
Look, George Bush choked on a pretzel and passed out. Okay.
Right.
It happened. We could find the humor in that. But nobody came out and said, we wonder if he has brain damage now because he blacked out or he passed out.
Right.
Because he choked.
You know, from some of his actions and some of his policies, you might wonder if he had brain damage. You almost
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he showed brain damage when he picked Dick Cheney as his vice presidential running mate. So at any rate, just as someone who, I just have to tell you, as someone who loves the give and take of politics and has spent like my entire lifetime, it seems, most of my life in politics, one way or the other, running for office, running campaigns, or in the media, talking about it and commentating on the political system, and someone it's still, despite some of the people who are in the political field still have a profound love for the political system. To hear somebody like Karl Rove just make a comment like that is so disgusting. It just should not. I don't think any of us, it just shouldn't be. None of us should tolerate that kind of talk. I don't care who it comes from. David Jackson, standing by at the White House, covers the White House for USA Today. He'll be joining us next. We will not talk to him about Karl Rove.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we are 13 minutes before the top of the hour. President Obama off to New York City today for fundraising and for a speech on transportation as well. But we got a briefing before he takes off down to the White House today, where I'll be joining David Jackson, covers the White House for USA Today on our news line this morning. Hello, David.
Hello, Bill.
What's going on down there this morning? So let me ask you this. Yeah, first of all, yesterday, a very, very moving ceremony in the East Room with the Medal of Honor for
very much
Sergeant Kyle White. Yeah. And the president really rises to the occasion for those things, I think.
Very much so. I mean, I think his respect for the military has increased over his years in office, and it's amazing the jobs these guys do under pretty difficult circumstances.
But aside from that, right, I have a hard time figuring out what is the message for the White House this week.
Good question. Infrastructure, they're trying to make infrastructure the message, but they're not getting a lot of attention for it. Remember that Anthony Fox, the transportation secretary, came out of the briefing on Monday, so he's trying to put a little pressure on Congress to pass a new highway bill because the money for the Highway Transportation Fund is supposed to run out before September, and if that happens, then all federal construction activity is going to come to a halt. So I think they're trying to lay the groundwork for what could be yet another face-off between Congress over a major program later this summer.
And, this is something I remember former Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood coming into a briefing a couple of years ago and just making the comment that I never saw a Democratic road or a Republican road, right? It's in everybody's interest to make sure our roads and highways are safe and good repair. But because these transportation bills were always bipartisan efforts in the past. Right?
That's true, and that's a mystery to a lot of people on both sides of the aisle. But I think there are a couple reasons for it. One is you got the Tea Party faction in the House that's opposed basically to any government spending, and they see this as yet another juicy target. Another thing I think you'll hear people talk about is the lack of earmarks is making it more difficult to pass these kind of bills, because in the old days, people could trade projects. I'll give you your bridge if you give me your road, and we'll both vote together. Well, that kind of negotiating doesn't go on anymore because of the earmark elimination. I think that's making it more difficult to pass these things as well.
That's how we got the bridge to nowhere, right?
Well, exactly. Jim Clyburn does, well, we supposedly have a bridge to nowhere in South Carolina, but Clyburn will defend it for you. I assume the one in Alaska has its defenders, too.
Yeah. Now, and the president, though, is giving, in line with this infrastructure, is giving us a talk today about transportation funding up in New York, in Tarrytown, New York, right?
Correct. He's going to the Tappan Zee Bridge, just north of New York City, which is undergoing a reconstruction as we speak, and he's going to use this as an example of how the federal government can help assist the transportation network. He's going to talk about how there's been a lot of failures on our transportation network. Road quality is way down. Of course, we had a bridge collapse several years ago. Bridges aren't in the greatest of shape, so he's going to tie a lot of that together in his speech beside just that huge bridge up in New York State.
And then a couple of fundraisers tonight on top of the fundraisers that he did last week in California. So this is the season, right, for raking in the bucks.
Exactly, got to rake in the bucks. And New York's where a lot of money is. There's also, it's a 2-day trip. Tomorrow he's going to dedicate that new 9/11 museum. The New York Times has a big feature on it this morning. It's a new museum talking about the the terrorist attack up there.
A lot of talk in the briefings the last couple of days about Nigeria. This is another case where, we see this horrific situation, but not a lot we can do, right?
Not a lot, but I think there's more than you might think. I mean, I think we've already got assets on the ground there. I think there may be some drone use going on over there. Anyway, there's some aerial photography going on. I think they're using their intelligence networks. I think we're definitely helping them at least try to find out where these girls might be. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes down there. But beyond that, you're right, there's not a lot we can do. It's not like we can send troops in there or send the FBI in there. We have to rely on the Nigerians to do that.
Well, you said the key word, and I was going to ask you about that. It's pretty apparent to me, and I think should be to everybody, that we are using drones there. And if not, I'd have to ask, why the hell not, right?
I'm just assuming. I mean, aerial surveillance was the phrase that was given to me. Right. I mean, I didn't specifically, I assumed it was drones too, but I didn't specifically nail that down. But
aerial surveillance, right.
I mean, the kind of stuff we use in other theaters of the world, I mean, we're pretty good at finding things, and we're pretty good at surveillance. So I think that's the kind of the assistance we're giving to Nigeria, and I think that's what's going on there.
Meanwhile, also, talk about a situation where our hands seem to be tied. Syria just keeps getting worse and worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, we had the Syrian opposition in town. Not a lot of fanfare about that, but the leader met with National Security Advisor Rice, and President Obama had a drop-in yesterday to talk about it. But, yeah, you're right. It's another very difficult situation. Given Iraq and Afghanistan and President Obama's foreign policy in general, it's just very difficult to see what we can do to be very effective in breaking up the Syria situation.
And the
longer it goes, the stronger Assad's position is.
No, totally. And the French foreign minister yesterday claiming that they had evidence that Syria has actually used chemical weapons since they agreed to get rid of all of them.
There's a lot of questions as to whether they really are getting rid of those chemical weapons, and there's certainly questions about whether they're getting rid of all of them. So another advantage Assad has is because of Ukraine. The world's attention has been refocused now on Eastern Europe and less so on Syria.
But so you did. I think I just heard you say the president did end up meeting with the Syrian opposition yesterday, didn't he?
It was it was my understanding he was supposed to drop by, and I think that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I didn't understand why Jay Carney. Yesterday and the day before, right? He said, I wouldn't be surprised or something like that, right? If the president, I have no announcement to make, but I wouldn't be surprised if the president. And I just thought, why doesn't he just say the president's going to meet with him?
You never know what's going to happen between now and then. And, any kind of thing could happen. So you don't want to say something's definitely going to happen until it actually does. So.
I get it.
You want to give yourself that trap door. We do it all the time in journalism, so I'm kind of sympathize with Jay on that score.
But you have to understand. You have to. The point that I think is very important. Here, the Syrian opposition, right? The people we're counting on to knock Assad out. They come to Washington, D.C., and there's been almost zero coverage of their visit by anybody, right?
Well, that's true. And a lot of newsrooms are pretty stretched thin these days, and there's other stuff going on. There's domestic stuff, but you're right. It's hard to cover everything. Now, in terms of another reason for the drop by is you don't want to have a formal meeting with an opposition leader because that just sends the wrong diplomatic signal. So, what happens is these guys come in and they'll be meeting with another top-ranking official, and the president will just happen to drop in to say hello and shake hands and stuff, and maybe do a little talking. That's the way it works with political opposition leaders too.
Yeah,
for example, David Miliband, the Labour leader in Great Britain, decided to drop by. He wouldn't have a formal meeting. I don't think he'd have a formal meeting with the president. He'd have a meeting with someone else, and the president would drop in to say hello.
Well, we'll let him off the hook on that one then.
Exactly.
All right, David.
These diplomatic rules can be pretty. Intricate.
That's why I'm no diplomat.
No, me either.
Hey, we'll see you down at the White House a little bit later.
Great, thank you, Bill.
Thanks, David. David Jackson at the White House for USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Bauhaus was one of the most definitive design movements of the modern age, reaching its peak between the two world wars. The word Bauhaus, loosely translated from German, means house of construction or school of building. Bauhaus was a new type of art school. Historically, European art academies taught each design subject separately. The Bauhaus offered foundation training in many art and design disciplines. They believed in variety. Understanding mass production was part of the curriculum, and the school sought to develop students who could unify art with craft while embracing new technology. It was also the beginning of the art school as an alternative way of life. Germany at that time was a pretty conservative place. And before the Nazis said "Nein" to the Bauhaus, it was arguably the most celebrated art school in the world. Bauhaus thinkers believed the world needed to be fundamentally rethought. Unnecessary ornamentation was out. Minimalism was in. Good design required simplicity and geometric purity. One of the best known icons of Bauhaus design is the cantilevered chair. Designed by someone named Breuer, it was inspired by the steel tubes of his bicycle, and ultimately led to the first lightweight, mass-produced metal chair. Despite his success, Breuer concluded that eventually chairs would become obsolete, and everyone would soon be sitting on supportive columns of air. Bauhaus was all about innovation and inspiration. Nowadays, Bauhaus influences can be seen everywhere, from road signs and graphic design to big windows and even bigger buildings. In architecture, the international style, as it became known, influenced skylines the world over. Bauhaus was about ideas, reform, exploration and vitality, about making more tidy sense of the rapidly evolving world around us, and giving us more cool stuff for our apartments.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
Coming up at the top of the next hour, and then Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund, hour number 2. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
It's Wednesday. How about it? Middle of the week, Wednesday, May 14. And this is the Bill Press Show. We are coming to you live this morning on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Whether you're on Free Speech or TawkrTV, we welcome you to the program, coming to you from our nation's capital this Wednesday morning with all the news of the day, and ready to hear your comments and take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Ready to read your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. President Obama off to New York City today. He's got a couple of fundraisers for the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee tonight. And this afternoon, he'll be giving a big speech on transportation funding issues. This is, after all, Infrastructure Week. Karl Rove in a lot of hot water today after, on May 8th, it just finally leaked out, he suggested at a conference out in Los Angeles that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton suffered brain damage when she fell at her home, which is really funny today because at the time, remember, they were suggesting that Hillary faked that fall and there was nothing wrong with her. She was just trying to get out of testifying in front of the Benghazi committee, and now they're saying that she has brain damage and therefore may not be healthy enough to run for President of the United States. Karl Rove trying to backtrack from that a little bit, but he still insists that she has perhaps a serious health problem. And Richard Clark, George Bush's national security expert, says there's nothing more to learn about Benghazi and we should just drop the whole thing. All that we're going to talk about. Take your calls on this morning on the Bill Press Show. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Benghazi, there's nothing more to learn about it, says Richard Clark, former National Security Advisor for President George W. Bush. Good morning, friends and neighbors, ladies and gentlemen, friends all. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Wednesday morning, May 14. So good to see you today. On your local progressive talk radio station, yes, we are there with you nationwide. On the TuneIn app, download that app if you haven't already done so, and you'll find us on the Progressive Voices channel, on Free Speech TV, and on our video stream, TawkrTV, coming to you live from our nation's capital. Here we are this Wednesday morning. Good to be here with you, and thank you for joining us for a little hopscotch around the globe, the country, and Washington, D.C., so we can bring you up to date on what's going on here on a Wednesday morning. And, of course, you want to sound off about what's going on, here's your chance to do so. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter. Look forward to hearing from you on Twitter at BP Show, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And you will join our team here on a Wednesday morning. Peter Ogburn, Elisa Murphy.
Good morning.
Hey. Right. Alicia Cruz, of course, has got the phones covered. And Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, keeping us looking good on the video stream, TawkrTV, and on Free Speech TV. We are going to start off this hour by sampling the best coffees in Washington, D.C. for sure, and the fifth best coffees in the entire country from our good friends Peregrine downstairs.
Until I try the other ones, it's the best coffee in the country.
There you go. Okay,
I'll go out on the limb.
All right. So we'll have a cup of Joe at the top of the show, and then the real Joe at the half hour.
There you go.
With Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund, and the representative from the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans Affairs at the top of the next hour to talk about this whole mess with the Veterans Administration. We will get back right into the coffee business in just a second, but first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Airbnb, Bill, you know Airbnb,
yes.
where you can book sort of extra rooms or houses from people who are renting them out. They're now changing the game a little bit because usually you have to book in advance. Now they're starting something called instant booking for people who want to find something the day of or the next day, so you're not have to do a lot of research or messaging with the seller or renter. You just find something you want, you book it on your app on your phone, and then you're good to go. A lot of companies have started doing this. There's another app called Hotel Tonight where you can find something immediately, and it's just based on availability and people who want to put it up there. So Airbnb
because usually Airbnb is a longer range planning.
It is.
I have to tell you, Airbnb I think is great. Our son Mark has an apartment, and if anybody's interested, in Hood River, Oregon,
little shout out.
Airbnb, a little shout out for that. But there's another site called Flipkey, which I heartily recommend. I just rented an apartment from Flipkey.
Nice.
For a little vacation
coming up. The murder trial of Oscar Pistorius continues, but it is going to go on a short hold. The judge said that Pistorius must undergo a month of psychiatric testing before the trial continues. He issued that just a few hours ago. That means that the trial is on hold indefinitely. So we will see what happens next. But for now, it's on hold.
I see another OJ here. I know this guy's guilty, but I'm afraid he's going to walk.
It's looking that way. I mean, when you put things on hold like that, certainly there are a lot of questions around him and his behavior. So we'll see. And which city is the most ragey on the roads? AutoVantage has a survey out of the top 5 cities who have the most road rage. Number 1 is, any guesses?
DC?
Road rage. Wait.
Road rage.
Wait a minute. L.A.
No, I'm sorry. L.A. not even in the top 5. Number 1 is Houston.
What?
Houston, Texas. However,
no, the problem with Houston is that they all carry guns.
You know what? That's a really, really bad combination.
Yeah,
to be the most, to have the most road rage and also
and the most concealed guns. Yeah,
yeah,
That
good
is
point.
scary.
Number 3 on the list, Baltimore, and number 4, DC. So basically,
Number
we're screwed.
4.
Don't go anywhere.
Washington D.C.
Washington D.C. number 4. Now, if you want to drive on friendly roads, go to Portland, Oregon.
Oh yeah, of course.
Pittsburgh, St. Louis, San Francisco, or Charlotte, North Carolina in the top 5.
All right, there you go. Wow. Washington, D.C. Well, so a couple of weeks ago, I was coming into work here in the studio early in the morning. You have to realize we get up before the roosters do, right? And get to work before any sign of dawn. And there's a TV crew right in front of our building here, and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? What are they doing here? So I asked the
Another
reporter.
warrant has been issued for a member of the Bill Press show.
Yeah, right. I thought they were coming to get us. And they said, no, we're here doing a story about Peregrine coffee because they have just been ranked the 5th best coffee shop in the entire country. Dawn Shanks is a barista for Peregrine Espresso, and she joins us in studio this morning. Hello, Dawn.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you like the sole barista downstairs? No?
No, there's a whole good crew of us down there.
Yeah? How did you learn to become a barista?
It's sort of something you just learn on the job. I've worked at a couple of coffee shops in the D.C. area, and I've been with Peregrine for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And I'd have to say that Peregrine does a really good job training and educating its staff.
Yeah. And does Peregrine, is Peregrine only D.C.? I mean, do they have stores anywhere else in?
Yeah, there's 3 locations. There's one up in Northeast in Union Market. There's one on 14th between R&S, and then there's us down in Eastern Market.
Okay. But outside of Washington, D.C.?
It's a local chain.
Come here and get it.
Right.
Definitely.
No, it's a local chain, right? So it's not like some of these others. Hello there.
Nice. We brought you some coffee.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Yeah. Is this a fellow barista here?
Yeah. Oh, this is my manager, Jeremy Sterner.
Oh, the manager. Hi, Jeremy. Nice to see you too. Thank you. Oh my God! Look at this.
Oh, nice.
Right.
And we have some
So 3
tea.
coffees and 3 teas.
3
cool.
All right. Okay. Oh my God. Great. Thank you.
And then 1 whiskey. That just looks like straight bourbon. So don't drink that. Don't drink that one yet.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, and tell us about this competition. So did you realize that there was this competition underway?
Oh, the competition for the one I just participated in Seattle?
Yes.
That's
right. This is a barista competition, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the United States Barista Championship, and it was in Seattle, where barista competitors have 15 minutes to prepare espressos, cappuccinos, and a signature drink that they create for 4 judges. And all the while, somebody's trailing them and watching their spillage and their waste and how clean they work.
Whoa.
And you're supposed to be talking about some topic in coffee somewhat coherently.
At the same time? Really? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you were how many contestants?
There were 24 of us in the first round, and it was my first year. So I just did the first round, and it was really awesome. I would definitely do it again.
Yeah. Some people from the first round were selected to go on to the playoffs or whatever.
6 were, and they
6,
joined finalists that placed in like a regional competition, and then 6 of that crew went on to finals.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
exciting.
Yeah.
I have a question about just coffee in general, and this is like we're kind of caffeine junkies, right?
Nice.
Obviously, because we work weird hours. But what's the difference in like a really good shot of espresso and just like a shot of espresso? Because there is a difference. Is it product? Is it procedure? What is it that makes the difference?
Well, I think a lot of things go into good coffee and good espresso, but I think one of the main things that I notice when I have a good shot is I'm not really thinking about how it tastes. I'm just thinking, wow, it's really good.
Yeah.
Like it's just, oh, that was pleasant.
Right.
So if it completely bypasses you thinking about like specific tastes or specific flavors, and you're just happy that you just drank that espresso, you're probably in the right place.
I mean, we've come along. How many people who come in to Peregrine just want a cup of coffee? You know what I mean? They don't want all this fancy stuff, or they don't even know what espresso is. They just want a cup of coffee.
I feel like the population of I just want a coffee kind of declines as the morning progresses and people get more caffeinated and awake. But yeah, I mean, I'm that way too. I just want some coffee right when I wake up, for sure.
But because the coffee world has changed, right?
For sure.
I mean, even the word barista, I never heard of the word till a couple of years ago.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's fairly new, right? And there it is.
It's also getting harder and harder to get a really bad cup of coffee, right?
That's so good.
Bad cups of coffee used to be you used to walk in and someone gave you coffee, all of it just universally sucked, right? But I think that people have elevated their knowledge and have grown to expect more.
Is that because of Starbucks?
I think that Starbucks definitely started, American consumers thinking about coffee and thinking about, quality standards like fresh, like made to order. For sure, that sort of sparked the flame that now third wave coffee shops sort of benefit from.
Right. And are they still good? Starbucks?
I think Starbucks does what it does really well. Now, if you put Peregrine next to Starbucks, you're going to see a lot of differences. But
Peregrine noticeably better is what you're saying.
I don't know.
I'll say it. I'll say it if she won't, because I know she's biased. But I'll say it.
Thanks.
But I guess the point is almost in every city today, large and small, there are specialty kind of coffee shops. A lot of local mom and pops like Peregrine, right? A local that have started up that are really very special. That we're encouraging people to support, right?
And I also like how city to city, right? Be it coffee or you see it in craft brewing and now micro distillers and things like that. When you have a smaller staff and they're all on site and you have the communication with people and you give them the knowledge, then there's better quality control. Across the board, the product ends up being better.
Absolutely. Right. I think I've said before that I think that coffee is a catalyst for positivity in communities. And the fact that a lot of us working at Peregrine live in the neighborhood and, we're involved with these people's lives even for 15 minutes. It just changes everybody's day-to-day life for the better.
I like that. A catalyst for creativity.
I like that.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
No, this is
Put
more.
that on a T-shirt.
I'm concerned that this coffee is getting cold.
Well, you're actually able to taste more flavors as it cools, so that's actually good.
Oh,
See?
is that right?
Have you participated in a cupping before?
No. I don't know what
a cupping.
I don't know what a cupping is.
Nice.
We've brought you 3 different coffees to try. They're from they're 3 different processes, and the way that we cup for quality and taste purposes is we sort of just take a little bit in a spoon and then slurp it, and then rinse our spoon. And if you taste all 3 of them, you'll taste different flavors and different taste balances, and they're all 3 cups of coffee,
okay.
but
All right.
super different.
Now I have a confession. I don't drink coffee.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But I used to.
You do today.
Do you see what's in this mug is iced tea.
Gin.
That's how I get mine.
Sorry.
But I will today. But you also brought some teas
We
too.
did bring teas
But
to
Peter
taste, too.
guzzles.
I drink a lot of coffee.
He drinks a lot of coffee. Yeah. So you do okay.
There we go.
Okay. I think we should take a quick break and then come back and do this.
Let's
right?
do it.
Because we're either going to be up
Let's do
against
it.
it, right? So right now, we're going to take a quick break. We're here with Dawn Shanks from Peregrine downstairs here in our building, the 5th best coffee shop in the entire nation. Eat your heart out, folks. Worth a trip to Washington just to come to Peregrine. And we'll be right back and taste all these great coffees here and get your questions or your comments about coffee at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route.
What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're gonna do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity. And one of my friends actually was murdered on basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him. Because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Coffee time here on the Bill Press Show on wherever you are. It's coffee time, I guess. On a Wednesday morning, Dawn Shanks is here. She's a barista at Peregrine Coffee downstairs in our building. And we, with Peter Ogburn, are about to sample these coffees. Dawn, thanks again for coming in.
Thanks.
So this is Nueva. Where is this from?
And Nueva Yusta is from Bolivia.
Bolivia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the way we slurp, we dip the spoon in there. We
Yep.
take a little bit and we slurp it.
Yeah, that's what we do in cupping. So
Yeah.
you dip and then slurp. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah,
I like
really
that taste.
chocolatey, balanced.
I was
Sweet.
going to say the chocolate. Yeah, I do.
Chocolatey, yeah, right.
Definitely.
Then we have Calenso. Calenso.
This one's my favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is
It's
a
from
sun-dried coffee from Ethiopia.
Really?
Yes.
What dried you say?
Sun-dried. So the process of the beans, when they've been picked off of the coffee tree, changes the taste and flavor of the coffee.
Huh.
This one's always really fruity with a high acidity, and it's sweet as well.
Yeah. No,
You know, you can seriously you can taste the difference.
You can.
Like in a big way.
Right. Absolutely. And
That's cool.
What is it? Deco?
Reiko is from Ethiopia as well, but it's processed as a washed coffee. So it's from the same place, but it's been processed in a different way, and the taste is really different. Like you're not going to get quite as much fruity notes as you are like black tea and honey.
Mm-hmm. No coffee from Hawaii here? No?
You know, we don't have a coffee from Hawaii on our menu right now.
Really?
But I've had it before.
That's the only place in America that grow coffee, correct?
I think it's the only coffee producing country. I think you can.
It's a state.
Yeah, or state, yes. Hawaii is a state.
That's really good too.
Yeah.
I agree though. I like the one in the middle. What was the second one called?
Oh, Kalenzo Mokanisa.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, these are all roasted by Counterculture down in Durham, North Carolina. We're an exclusive counterculture coffee shop.
Counterculture, is that the name of the
roaster? Yeah.
Of the roaster, right?
Wonderful.
Okay.
All those are wonderful.
Yeah, they really are. If I wanted to get back into coffee, and I walk into Peregrine, what should I order?
I think you should follow your palate. So whatever kind of.
I'm telling you, please tell my palate what it likes.
It's always good to come in and talk to your barista and be like, I really like sweet, chocolatey coffee, and then they'll point you in the right direction.
Oh, I got it. Okay, can we taste the tea quickly?
Definitely.
I've black tea, huh?
Black tea. This is Golden Yunnan green tea, and an oolong. And these are all from Rishi Tea. You can get them at like Whole Foods.
Okay. Do we cup again?
This is the first time I've cupped tea too. So I guess let's just do it the same way as coffee.
Let's do it.
All right. Yeah.
Slurp.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I like that a lot. That black tea is very, very good.
And we can ice any of these for you if you ever want to come down and get an iced tea.
Oh, cool.
Well,
That's
thank
all
you.
you, Bill.
That's good. There we are. Okay. So I think the moral of the story is that you ought to support your local coffee shop and talk to the barista, right? Talk your way through
We love talking to the customers. Absolutely.
Is that right? All right, great. Well, congratulations again on the success of Peregrine and your own success in the competition. And we'll see you downstairs.
Thanks so much,
All right.
guys.
And we'll be back with Joe Cirincione.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, "Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but like go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about, you know, your next venture."
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. You know, I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Wednesday morning, May 14, 33 minutes after the hour. It is the Bill Press Show brought to you today by AFSCME, the good men and women of AFSCME, the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country under President Lee Saunders. Our good public servants at AFSCME making America happen, and their website is afscme.org, AFSCME.org. Check it out. We go from a cup of Joe to the real Joe, the real thing here, who has his cup of Joe from Peregrine.
Best coffee in town.
Which he bought downstairs on his way up to the studio this morning. Hi, Joe. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I would have come earlier for the sampling.
The cupping. We were just cupping.
Cupping.
That's what they call it.
That's right.
That's a new word for me. Joe, of course, is head of the Ploughshares Fund and our own Bill Press Show foreign policy guru. Joe, there's so much to get through this morning. I haven't seen you since the White House Correspondents' Dinner, by the way. We had a good time.
Thank you very much. That was fabulous. I enjoyed meeting Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart.
No way.
Oh, no.
We had a great talk about foreign policy.
I want you to know, Joe worked the room. He worked.
I've been in Washington a while.
He shook hands with every... there were 2,614 people there. He shook hands.
I had
with
to push
everyone.
Bill out of the way.
Good. That's what you're supposed to do.
All right, Joe. The world is really in a state of shock over what's happening in Nigeria. We've seen the video now of these girls abducted and dressed in these Islamic robes and obviously being held. And now, I mean, what's going on there? And is there anything the United States can do beyond providing what assistance we can to a government that basically doesn't exist?
Yeah, well, several things here. There's an international crisis on the abduction of children overall. What's happening here is there's a group of them, and it's all at once. So it's 300, and it's getting our attention.
Right.
And it comes up right to the level of Mrs. Obama. So Michelle Obama holding up a sign expressing solidarity. It also brings out some of the worst aspects in the American political system. Individuals like John McCain who say, let's send in the troops. This kind of knee-jerk response, thinking we can send
McCain says that about everything.
About everything, right?
Yeah,
If all you have is troops, every problem it can be solved by troops. And so he wants this idea that we can send the 101st Airborne in. Well, we can't. Nigeria is a huge country. We don't know where these girls are. Even if we did, did, it'd be extremely difficult to get troops there. So you've got to depend on the efforts of the Nigerian government. So we've got to be helping them, bringing in supplemental forces, other troops from other African nations, finding intelligence. That can be very useful.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing we're doing. I'm confident that eventually we're going to find these girls and set them free.
And when the United States, like Jay Carney was saying yesterday, that we are providing aerial surveillance.
Yes.
That means drones, doesn't it?
I
hope it does, by the way.
It almost certainly includes drones, but there's lots of high-altitude airplanes we have. And, simple things like Piper Cubs flying over, satellite surveillance that can be trained on these areas. We have a lot of assets we can bring to bear that are not boots on the ground, but eyes in the sky.
Yesterday, there were several questions also about Syria, because this week, the Syrian opposition, leaders of the Syrian opposition, are here in Washington, D.C.
Met with Obama just yesterday.
Right, but it's also it's like one of the biggest secrets of why isn't there more attention to them? I don't know. Have they held a news conference? Why aren't they?
Well,
because what is the situation in Syria?
Grim. The opposition is on the ropes at this point. Assad is on the ascendance. If you read the Washington Post this morning, you saw that the city of Homs, which had once been declared the capital of the rebellion, has now been, the rebels have fled it. The citizens are being allowed to return. It looks like Berlin after the war. It's just rubble. Yeah. People can't find where their houses were. It's a very grim situation. The other reason, I think, is that one of the things the rebels want is something we're very reluctant to give them. They want ground-to-air, shoulder-fired missiles. We're afraid if we give them those kinds of weapons that they will fall into the hands of the extremist forces and be used against us. And it just takes one downed plane at Tel Aviv airport to cause an international crisis. So the aid to the rebels is increasing, but it's a very, very grim situation at present.
So the possibility that Assad is going to be tossed out, or that President Obama said he cannot continue as leader of Syria, he must go?
He is continuing as leader of Syria. There is an election scheduled for just a few weeks. Assad is likely to be reelected, obviously, and that might dim further any prospects for a power-sharing arrangement.
It's just, we almost have to concede we've lost in Syria?
Almost. It's not over yet, and Assad doesn't control the country, but he's consolidated his control over a good 50 to 60% of it, as particularly the area around Damascus. There continues to be fighting. There's even attacks still in the suburbs of Damascus. Some of the northern and northwestern areas are under rebel control, but it's this core area that now Assad controls, although in a completely ruined state.
All right, and in the meantime, we have a referendum in eastern Ukraine, where 70, 80, 99% of the people who voted, say we don't want to be part, we want to separate, we want to be part of Russia now. Is anybody going to pay any attention to that? And is this an excuse for Putin to come in and seize more of Ukraine, in addition to Crimea?
There is a slow rolling effort to replicate what Putin did in Crimea in eastern Ukraine. That is, you see every day the further infiltration of uniformed, that is men in Russian uniforms without insignia, many wearing masks, appearing well armed, some equipped with arms that we know only the Russian army has, and they are taking over public buildings, town halls. There's been several dozen such seizures now in over a dozen cities, some of these cities quite large, in eastern Ukraine. All of this is an attempt to stir up and create a crisis that could, quote, threaten the lives of Russian-speaking citizens, which Putin has warned he would defend. I was on the phone yesterday with our former ambassador to Ukraine, Steve Pfeiffer. We do at Ploughshares Fund, we do something called a donor call, where our contributors are brought in every month and they get inside information. Steve was quite good on this. He's probably the leading expert. His prognosis for this is very worrisome. Whereas he said a couple of weeks ago he would have thought it was maybe a 20% chance Russian troops would show up in eastern Ukraine. Now he values it at 50-50. This will probably escalate as we get closer to the May 25th presidential election,
Right.
which is designed to formally elect the new president of Ukraine. He expects that Russia will try to disrupt that, discredit it, maybe use that as a pretext for intervention.
Well, again, in terms of what we can do, this is where I think a lot of Americans who pay attention to this at all feel frustrated, right? Because John McCain, of course, would send in the Marines.
Again, boots on the ground, and you've heard this.
Boots on the ground, which we're not going to do, correct?
Correct.
So what can we do? And again, we're so far away from the Ukraine. What can we do without our European allies?
So you don't want this to be a military conflict, and you want to find a way to back Putin down. So what we have is a steady series of escalating sanctions. Just yesterday, the United States and Europe put new sanctions on individuals. So far, they're targeted sanctions, not what they call sectoral sanctions. So we not yet have targeted the banking industry, for example. We're talking about individuals, trying to get to the oligarchs around Putin, punish them for this, bring some pressure. We're also giving aid. So the IMF had a package of $1 million in aid that went to Ukraine yesterday. The EU gave 1 million euros, which is more than dollars. It's about $1.4 million to Ukraine. And this is the third part that you want to do. You want Europe to lead. You know, the European mechanism is creaky, it's disunited. The people in Spain, Portugal, and Italy look at the crisis differently from those in Germany and Poland and Estonia. But you've got to get Europe to take the lead on this. This is fundamentally a European problem, and that's part of U.S. policy to encourage them to do that. One last thing. You see Europe responding. Prime Minister Sikorsky from Poland was in town just yesterday talking about the need for Poland in particular, but with the EU in general, to respond more quickly, to respond more forcefully. This is fundamentally a European problem.
Well, haven't we seen that Europe is reluctant to several of the European countries, particularly Germany, I guess, reluctant to be stronger because of their dependence on natural gas coming from Ukraine?
So part of the long-term strategy here is to wean the countries away from Russian gas in particular.
But replacing it with what? We can't export. We don't have the facilities to export
actually,
natural gas.
We do. And this is actually giving somewhat of a boost to the fracking industry in the United States. Some people might not like that, but that's what's happening. We export it in a liquefied form. We freeze it and we export it in liquefied natural gas tankers. And, of course, there's alternative energy sources as well. Some would say nuclear, but it's more likely you're seeing more and more interest in developing domestic alternative energy sources in Europe. And this is why, by the way, the IMF says that this crisis is having an impact on Russia's economy. They just lowered their anticipated growth projections. They now say the economy in Russia is going to grow only 0.3%, down from 1.3% last year.
A lot of people are asking, we've had all these sanctions on all these individuals around Putin. Why not on Putin?
Well, that's a very interesting question. There is an effort to track further his fortune.
Yeah.
Putin is believed to have gotten very rich on his term, be worth several $1 billion. He's very good at hiding that money. One of the efforts is to track down more of that and sanction him in particular.
Yeah, because it seems to me, if you want to hit home, maybe they feel that, that there's some hope left for Putin. I don't know that there is, but...
I don't know if there is either. The wrap on this is that it was a tactically smart move. This was a very well executed but strategically stupid. Putin has really soured his relations with the United States, with Europe, and is harming the economy. This is not going to bode well for him in the long run.
So that's all the bad news on the foreign policy front. We save the good news for the next segment here. We'll take a quick break.
Yeah.
Iran is looking...
optimism is growing.
Optimism is growing. Yes, indeed, with Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund. And then the big movie, Monday, is that it?
Friday.
Friday.
Buy your tickets.
Get line up for Godzilla. Joe will tell us why when we come back on the Bill Press Show Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
We'll get to the bottom of the problems of the Veterans Affairs at the top of the next hour, and then Kate Nocera joins us from Buzzfeed, covers Congress for Buzzfeed. Right now, we are looking at the hotspots around the world with nobody better than Joe Cirincione, head of the Ploughshares Fund, ploughshares.org, P-L-O-U-G-H, shares, ploughshares.org. Let's talk about Iran.
Yes.
Is there any glimmer of hope there?
Wall Street Journal headline yesterday, optimism grows for comprehensive deal with Iran.
Whoa.
Yes. And this is the consensus view of the experts.
But wasn't also a report that because the IAEA or whatever is taking so long for their investigation that things are going to slow down?
No.
Oh, okay.
Let me tell you why.
All right.
So there was that report, but that's not going to slow things down.
Oh, okay.
So the diplomats, led by our team is Wendy Sherman, the Deputy Secretary of State, extremely capable. We are so lucky to have her backed up by a crack team. These guys know what they're doing. They're in Vienna meeting with the 7 nations, the P5+1 they call it, the UN Security Council, PERM states, plus Germany negotiating with Iran. They started drafting the agreement. After weeks and weeks of work, they started drafting the agreement. The experts are meeting constantly. They have formal meetings every 2 weeks, but they're exchanging. They're going off these long list of issues. There might be you could make a list of 40 issues. In fact, the International Crisis Group just released a wonderful report on Monday called Solving the Rubik's Cube of Iran, and it came out with its proposed solution, ticking off the 40 different ways you could, the 40 areas you have to compromise on. A lot of these are showing progress. The key is going to be finding a way to limit Iran's program. We're not going to go out of this with zero capability in Iran. Right. It's a question of how you limit it, confine it, heavily monitor it, so you're sure they can't make a bolt for a bomb. I think we can do that, and then package that with a scheduled release of sanctions. The deadline is July 20th. Everybody's pushing for it. Rouhani, the president of Iran, needs this deal to show some improvement in the economy. I think the president of the United States needs this deal because he needs a breakthrough. It's not just about Iran. It's about doing something that could help stabilize the Middle East, help change the geopolitics of the entire region.
Because if we can improve our relations with Iran over this deal, right, and then they can be helpful to us in Syria and
there's no guarantee
in the Middle East,
that these things will follow, but there are overlapping strategic imperatives. Both countries have an interest in stabilizing Afghanistan. Iran and the U.S. cooperated in the overthrow of the Taliban. Both want to stabilize Iraq. Both want to prevent al-Qaeda, the sworn enemy of both countries, from establishing a base in Syria. So you can see the broader strategic possibilities opening up.
Yeah, I didn't realize by July this might be resolved. Yeah. And Godzilla.
He's back.
He's back.
So excited.
And more anti-nuclear than ever. So this is going to be a great thrill ride. Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad is the star of the film. The special effects looks fabulous, but it keeps faith with the original anti-nuclear theme. 1954, the Japanese were still being banned from talking about nuclear weapons, so they made a movie. Godzilla was the nuclear nightmare. His skin was designed to look like the scars of the survivors at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He was born from the testing of a U.S. H-bomb that had happened just the year before. So that's where Godzilla comes, and he's bringing his revenge. This Godzilla, he's born from the accident at Fukushima. So he first comes aboard at the nuclear power plant at Fukushima. Where it gets better, other monsters are generated, and they're anti-nuclear monsters. They're attracted to radiation. So the director says, what if all the countries that keep these nuclear weapons suddenly were the targets of them? They'd be scrambling to get rid of them as quickly as possible. This is just a monster movie, but in this case, Hollywood is unambiguously expressing its view that nuclear weapons are not a security asset, they're a liability.
And was the script written by the Ploughshares organization?
Didn't cost us a dime.
I see it. It's propaganda for the Ploughshares Fund. That's what it is. But great. Oh, that's going to have a great impact. Yeah. Oh, man. Joe, so good to see you. All right.
Thanks, Bill. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for covering everything from Nigeria to Godzilla. I mean, we talk about covering the waterfront. Again, it's Ploughshares Fund, ploughshares.org. Joe Cirincione. I'll come back and take a look at the President's Day with you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, you've heard all this commentary about the Veterans Administration, the VA, and General Shinseki being under fire. What's that all about? We'll find out at the top of the next hour with Nick McCormick from the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans Affairs Committee. And also Kate Nocera from Buzzfeed, covers the Congress for Buzzfeed, will be joining us. All of that in our third hour. Can't stay with us on Free Speech TV, unfortunately, but you can on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. Hour number 3 coming up.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama on the road today. Well, he gets a daily briefing first at 10 o'clock, then meetings with senior advisors, and then at 1:20 he'll be leaving the White House on his way up to JFK and delivering a speech on infrastructure and the importance of getting more money for the Highway Trust Fund. That speech out in Tarrytown, New York. Then he'll be back into Manhattan for 2 fundraisers tonight, one for the the DNC, and the other for the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee. President and the First Lady will spend the night in New York, and then he has meetings again tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow he'll be dedicating the September 11 new memorial and museum down at Ground Zero. In our next hour, very exciting, Nick McCormick will be here from the Iraq and Afghan Veterans Affairs to talk about the problems with the Veterans Affairs Department. And then we'll be joined by Kate Nocera. She covers the Congress for BuzzFeed to see whether or not we're going to see any action on immigration reform and other issues this year. Hour number 3 coming
is
up.
the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's 2, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try
try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Richard Clark, terrorist expert in the Bush White House and the Clinton White House, says there is nothing more to learn about Benghazi. Maybe Republicans will hear that. Maybe they won't. Good morning, everybody. It is the Bill Press Show on a Wednesday morning, May 14. So good to see you today. We're here in our nation's capital on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, keeping our eye on what's going on here in Washington. A lot going on, even though the House is out of town. What's going on around the country and around the globe, we'll let you know. That's our job. Your job? Let us know what you think about it all at 866-55-PRESS. Good to see you this Wednesday morning. One of the big stories in town, one is getting a lot of attention, are allegations concerning a cover-up or perhaps just incompetence in the Veterans Administration. So we wanted to get right to the bottom of that. General Shinsheki, head of the VA, has been getting a lot of criticism, some demanding that he should step aside or the president should fire him. Nick McCormick is the legislative associate for the IAVA, the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, joining us again in studio this morning. Nick, it's always good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in.
No problem.
Get right to the bottom of this. You join our team here, of course, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey.
Hey, good morning.
With Alicia Cruz, they're on the phones. Thanks, Alicia, and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, on the video cam. And in addition to talk about the IAVA and other issues that we'll be covering, of course, Karl Rove has stirred things up by suggesting at a meeting out in Los Angeles last week, May 8th, that when she fell at her house a year or so ago, that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton might have actually suffered some serious brain damage that she hasn't told us about. Now, he says he didn't use the word brain damage, he just said serious brain. No, what is it? Traumatic brain injury.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's better than saying brain damage. I don't see the difference, but at any rate, this is going to generate a lot of criticism, a lot of commentary, and a lot of poking fun on the part of the late night comics. Jon Stewart got his licks in last night.
Unanswered questions, an attempted cover-up. My God, it's Brain-Ghazi! How many synapses? We need the truth!
Brain-Ghazi.
Just one quick question before you go there, House MD. When did you start caring so much about the brain fitness of those who have to hold the Oval Office? Perhaps, I assume, it was right after your boss fell and banged his head after losing a battle with a pretzel.
Brutal.
Dude blacks out. Next thing you know, he's starting an unprovoked war in Iraq. Now he spends his days eating applesauce and painting his feet.
Oh, Jon Stewart having fun with Karl Rove. And by the way, Jay Carney yesterday at our briefing, when he was asked about Karl Rove, Carney was ready with a quick response that Dr. Rove, he said, Dr. Rove may have been the last person in the country not to know that Barack Obama had actually won re-election. Remember his whole big embarrassing moment on Fox News on election night. So haven't heard the end of Karl Rove. We're going to talk about the VA here at the top of the hour and try to get to the bottom of that. Then Kate Nocera joins us. She covers Congress for Buzzfeed. She'll be here at the half hour. But first, next Peter always starts with the big stories of the day.
A couple of quick stories. Yes, indeed. Let's start in the NBA, where last night the playoffs continued, and the Wizards held on. They didn't go down easy last night. In fact, they walloped the Indiana Pacers, 102-79, the final there.
How about them Wizards, huh?
Good team.
They are a good team. When they turn it on, man, they really turn it on. That means they're still down 3-2, but the series is coming back here to Washington tomorrow night. Meanwhile, the Clippers and the Thunder last night in the late game, the Thunder were victorious in that game.
Yep. So, also, what's interesting, tomorrow night there was scheduled a Lady Gaga concert at the Verizon Center. And the Wizards thought, maybe we'd better postpone that because we just may be coming back to D.C.
There you go.
There they are. And Lady Gaga's up Saturday night.
Yeah. While we're talking about the NBA, by the way, the vice president of the NBA Players Association told Showtime's Jim Rome in an interview that's going to air tonight that he spoke to LeBron James, and LeBron James said that if Donald Sterling still owns the Los Angeles Clippers next season, he will strike.
Whoa.
The biggest basketball player in the game right now has said he has many other players behind him, and if they don't force Sterling to sell the team, LeBron won't play.
Whoa.
Wow. That's huge.
That is huge.
I know.
Huge.
But you know what? He'll no longer be the owner by this time next year. A month from now, I think.
Yeah,
I hope.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a matter of time. The New York Times yesterday trying to regain some of their credibility on the cooking front because they moved Sam Sifton, their restaurant critic. They got rid of their blog, the Diners Journal, so they launched NYT Cooking. It is a new site all about recipes, and it's just cooking and recipes and techniques, and they talk to chefs about technique and recipes. Sam Sifton will be writing for them along with Julia Moskin, Melissa Clark, and David Tanis.
And Mark
That's
Bittman.
exciting.
I didn't see Mark Bittman on. They don't have him profiled on this thing right now.
Mark Bittman's their star, I think, at least one of. Every Sunday in the New York Times Magazine, Mark Bittman.
They don't have him featured on the website here, but I'm sure he'll contribute somehow.
All right. We thank you, Peter.
You got it.
So, with all the allegations of long lines and delays and people dying as a result of these delays, Nick, I know you guys have been into this because a lot of these veterans, of course, are from Iraq and Afghanistan. What's the bottom line? What's really going on here?
Well, I think at the end of the day, these allegations, it's not something brand new per se. Veterans have been sort of voicing their concerns about long lines and delays with regards to VA care for a number of years.
Yeah.
It's just now the fact that essentially people are getting caught, or allegations are being made that people are cooking the books to sort of portray this picture of VA care as all is well, business as usual, we're meeting our marks and so forth. But if it really turns out to be true that people are cooking the books when in fact VA care is not being delivered in a timely manner, those are serious charges I think will call for bold reform from the Secretary and the President.
Most of the allegations center around Phoenix, where allegedly, again, there were 40 people died because they didn't get the care that they needed.
Correct.
Because of just bureaucratic delays.
Correct. So, in the simplest terms, it would seem to be a supply and demand issue. And if that's the case, I think that's something Congress could really take a look at real quick and make sure that VA staffing needs are met in terms of how many patients they have to see and so forth. But if there's something more, structural reforms that are necessary, I think that's where the VSO community, the veterans have a lot of input on that. But also the President, we need to sort of take the bull by the horns here and say, all right, what do we need to have in place here in 2014 and going forward to make sure that VA can handle the intake that they're getting?
Are there stories of delays or complaints beyond Phoenix? Is just this limited to this one facility?
No. So it almost seems as if the Phoenix story was the straw that broke the camel's back. It's about every day there seems to be new allegations of misconduct. I think yesterday, Durham, North Carolina, VA facility was the latest in several accusations that one, employees were trying to game the system, or two, there's just the public display of how we do business at this particular facility is not exactly the most truthful display of record keeping. So there's just a growing concern that veterans are losing faith in the system because certain personnel are making things harder than they are in the veteran.
Right, and this is this something new? It seems to me that I've heard complaints about VA hospitals as long as I've known veterans, right?
Right. I mean,
which goes back to when I was a child, because most of my father and my uncles were all veterans.
Right. So VA's healthcare system, they serve about 6 million veterans every year. There have been a number of studies to take a look at sort of how they intake their patients, and the wait times and so forth are done. I think the last study that came out from the GAO a couple of years ago said, look, the software that you guys use to handle these patients, it's out of date. You need to institute some reforms. VA, I think a couple months after the report came out, said, okay, we're on top of this, we're instituting these changes. But lo and behold, here we are in 2014, and that's not exactly the case. And granted, we're only 2.5 weeks into this scandal, and we've only heard about 5 or 6 accusations of wrongdoing. There could be a lot more, and it would not surprise us or our membership at all if we hear more allegations of wrongdoing.
General Shinseki, a man I thought with an impeccable reputation, named by President Obama to head the Veterans Administration. How long has he been there? A couple of years now?
No, he's been there since the beginning, so
From
January of 2009, correct.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I thought there was someone before him. And a lot of the charges go directly at him, right?
Right.
This just proves that he's not up to the task. I think John McCain, or I don't know, blame him if he hasn't, or name him if he hasn't, but some members of Congress have said Shinseki's got to go.
Right.
What is you've certainly dealt with him, IAVA, for the last 4 or 5 years. What's your impression of him as a leader?
So he is, he's had to preside over an agency in a tough time. They've had to make this transition from a sort of an outdated way of doing things in some aspects to a sort of more electronic-based way of doing things. Obviously, we're getting ready to wrap up, the second war that we've been engaged in for nearly a decade, or more than a decade in Afghanistan. So it's been a very tough time for the VA. But our impression of him is, look, he's impeccable leadership. It's just for us, we want to see a proactive secretary, not a reactive secretary. So that means really, when these allegations are brought forward, we want to see him sort of, take the initiative, hold those accountable that, have done wrong. And granted, we'll find out here in the near future. But just sort of, assure veterans that the system is working the way it is set up to be. And then when there are, flare-ups of wrongdoing, really make sure that the changes instituted and individuals are held accountable.
Okay, and what is being done to find out the truth here?
Well, so the Office of Inspector General is down in Phoenix right now conducting a comprehensive investigation. That'll take some time to find out, what exactly happened. House Veterans Affairs Committee subpoenaed any and all correspondence between Secretary Shinseki and other VA officials about the Phoenix issue alone. The Secretary is going to be on Capitol Hill tomorrow testifying in front of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. But on as far as Congress goes, there is a bill in both the House and Senate, the VA Management and Accountability Act, that would that gives the Secretary the power to sort of rid the VA of some of these high-ranking bureaucrats that sort of are entrenched in the system, just as a way to sort of make change easier to accomplish within VA. We think it is a necessary part of the Secretary's tool bag in terms of administering care for veterans and making sure that the agency is run smoothly.
So there will be congressional investigations.
Correct.
And the Inspector General of the Veterans Affairs.
Yeah, the VA OIG is down in Phoenix right now taking a look at this, trying to get to the bottom of it. I mean, obviously, the idea that people are, cooking the books or keeping a secret waiting list and people are, dying in line is, that's terrible. And obviously, it's
any response on the part of the White House?
They stood by the Secretary. They said, look, he's taking the lead on this. He's going to get to the bottom of it. And I think basically they said, look, right now it's too soon to start, axing people. They want to make sure that the Secretary does a thorough and complete investigation of all these allegations. He's called for audits, at every VA facility in terms of wait time and record keeping, that sort of thing. So I think they're just saying, look, let's take it one day at a time. Let's not have any sort of knee-jerk reactions. But there have been a few members of Congress that have called for the Secretary to resign, but we are not one of those organizations. We're speaking with our membership, making sure, what exactly do you want to see? How do you feel about this? Any more issues you think the White House, Congress, and the VA should know about?
And I guess waiting till till these investigations are complete, and then we know more about
right.
Exactly
I mean, that's
what
essentially
happened.
the position that Senator McCain has taken. I mean, he's obviously outraged, as is the entire American public. We said, look, once the OIG gets to the bottom of this and we find out what happened, then we'll proceed with potential personnel decisions, that sort of thing. But, right now, let's just investigate and find out what happened.
Not excusing it in any way, But I was startled when we were just chatting before we went on the air that the VA is the second largest of our federal agencies.
Correct. Second largest.
I mean, it does
department.
make sense, right, when you think
Right.
about it, because there are so many millions and millions of people come through the military. But bigger than Department of Transportation or HHS or any of the rest.
Right. So it's in
second only to the Pentagon. Right?
Yeah, DoD, the largest employer in the world.
Yeah.
VA is right up there as well. It's just we certainly understand and sympathize with the fact that it's a large agency, plenty of things to be responsible for, a lot of institutional change that he's had to manage since January of 2009. It's a tough job. I mean, that's why it's not made for the rest of us. It really is a difficult task. But when there are issues, there are problems. When there are scandals, we want bold, decisive leadership.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is something that's really shocking. Just what happened, in Phoenix, and a lot of people are understandably concerned about it. Want to get to the bottom of it. Here with Nick McCormick from IAVA, Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. A lot of veterans I know in our listening and viewing audience. If you have a question for Nick McCormick or your comments on your experience or anything you know about what's happening in Phoenix, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Charges of incompetence and delays and even maybe cover-up in the VA. Nick McCormick is legislative associate for the IAVA, the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, in studio with us this morning. Before we go to the calls here, Nick, the justice, some members of Congress have suggested that for the Inspector General to look at this, or even for members of Congress to hold a committee hearing, is not enough, that the Department of Justice ought to be looking into possible criminal violations here. Eric Holder yesterday said at this point there is no Department of Justice investigation underway. Is that your take as well?
That's as far as we can tell, and I've heard that's how things are going to proceed. Like we said, one, we have a big hearing tomorrow with the Secretary. We want to get some good solid answers from him, and also we want to hear what the OIG has to say after their thorough investigation of Phoenix. So, again, at the end of the day, we're still learning new things. So right. I think to sort of jump to conclusions, at this point, it's too soon to really sort of start. We have a general idea of what's happening out there, but I don't think we have enough sort of tangible facts to really get going with so-called investigations.
Helen is calling from Chicago. Hi, Helen. What's your comment or question? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. At the time that George Bush went into war, we went in with what we had, if you remember.
Yes.
And then the Republicans came in, and they cut everybody's budget. That included budget for therapists and all of that in the VA. The VA has an excellent system, but we were laid off and put at a very disadvantage, for what we had to do. They have an excellent system. It's also computerized and everything.
All right. Got that, Helen. Just in the interest of time, just a few seconds here. Nick?
Yeah, so under the Obama administration, VA budgets have not been an issue, which is, really what is upsetting to members of Congress. If they've, a lot of them have said, look, tell us what you want, we'll make it happen. And if it's not a funding issue, then what is it? So, if this is a blind demand thing, it's something I'm sure Congress would want to take a look at and, alleviate those areas of concern.
But the money has been restored to
the funding for VA is at record levels.
It's
there. The budget's, it's a good budget.
Well, we'll see what comes out of this investigation, and we'll get you back, and then we'll talk about what we do. Where do we go from there?
Terrific.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for coming in.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory? Did you take a chance?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Did you commit to change the world?
Learn more.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Wednesday morning, May 14, The Bill Press Show. Here in our nation's capital, brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Good men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. Making America happen, and you can find out more about their good work. We all live better because of their good work. Good men and women of the Teamsters. Their website, is teamster.org. Teamster.org. So the House of Representatives is off on a mysterious vacation this week. Nobody can figure out why they took this week off. It's not Memorial Day. It's not July 4th. Kate Nocera knows. She's here from Buzzfeed. She covers the Congress.
Hi.
They just decided to take another week off.
Why
Hi,
not?
Kate. How are you?
Why not? It was a busy week last week.
Yeah,
so.
right. What'd they get done last week?
They held Lois Lerner in contempt.
Oh, that's right.
Established the Benghazi Select Committee. So it was a very busy week.
So after those two positive things,
Yeah.
right, that improve the standard of living of every single American, they had to take a week off. Right. Good to see you this morning again. Where do we start? I have to start with a very troubling story. One of my favorite members of Congress is John Conyers from Michigan.
Yeah.
Of course, he's a Democrat, but he's also feisty and he's raised a lot of hell on our show. And former chair of the House Judiciary Committee and a great progressive. And it looks like he may not. And
a clerk ruled yesterday.
Is he the oldest?
So once Mr. Dingle retires, he will be the dean of the. He'll be the if he.
He would
comes
be.
Back
he
to
would
Congress.
be the dean
right.
of the House of Representatives, and he may not even be able to run for re-election because
he didn't make the ballot because a judge ruled that a number of the signatures were invalid. I guess in Michigan you have to be a registered voter to collect signatures, and two of his petitioners were not registered voters, so the judge ruled them invalid. And
unbelievably.
But here's the thing. Conyers has been there for, 50 years? I mean, he's represented the district for so long that if they do an extensive write-in campaign, it's definitely still possible for him to get reelected. And
so he could run as a write-in candidate then, I guess, huh?
Yeah. And the DCCC, Steve Israel, who chairs that, put out a statement yesterday, said that they were very confident that Mr. Conyers would be returning to Congress next session, and that they would be, working and helping him do that. So
Boy, he's
it just was
it's very
really surprising
and embarrassing and inexcusable, and is certainly let down by his campaign staff. I mean, he was it's not a big burden. I think they just have to get 1,000 signatures.
Right.
1,000 signatures.
And I think that,
he's been there 40 years. I mean, you could get 10,000 signatures for John Conyers if you're organized.
I mean, you think so.
Yeah.
It might be one of those things where it's just like you've been there forever and you just assume that everything's going to go the way it's supposed to.
And when your campaign manager says, don't worry, it's in the bag, we got it done, I got all these people out there, I'm going to get the signatures. He went to bed thinking he had 2,000 signatures, twice what he needed.
Right.
And there were and over 1,000 of them were invalid. Man, pretty basic.
Yeah.
You mentioned one of the things that the Democrats, or that the House did last week, was appoint a select committee on Benghazi.
Right.
You've written that well, first of all, we don't know what Democrats are going to do about it yet.
We still don't know yet. They're still debating. I would say the caucus is still really split between people who think that they should have full participation and people who think they shouldn't show up at all. I know the last thing that happened before I left on Friday was Pelosi and Boehner had a conversation on the floor in which Boehner made some sort of good faith offer to her to say, you'll be able to interview witnesses and have access to documents. And it would essentially have been like a handshake.
Yeah.
And that wasn't good enough for
the caucus.
For the caucus. I mean, to her, she wants something in writing, something that says the committee will function differently than like oversight. Right. Where the majority can just kind of do whatever they want. And Boehner is like, well...
It would be more like the ethics committee where they were evenly balanced as...
Right. So at this point, they're not going to have... I mean, in terms of the straight numbers, that's not going to change. And Democrats know that. They
7
know
Republicans, it's going to be 7 to 5. Right.
But what they are looking for are for some assurances that the process will be more fair for the minority. I think that I actually think Boehner really wants Democrats to be on this committee. Like, I believe that he actually feels like he needs them there to give
some legitimacy
to this.
Right.
Not only legitimacy, but I think that if they're not there, the burden on Republicans is so much higher to just have he keeps saying, I don't want it to be a circus. I don't want it to be a kangaroo court. And if you just have your members there, the burden is entirely on you to make sure that doesn't happen.
Totally. So, well, and if they're just Republicans there, I think almost de facto it becomes a kangaroo court.
Right.
Because there's no dissenting voices. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro put out a possible compromise, which was, okay, let's just name one Democrat.
I don't really understand that compromise. I mean, if you're saying you want an even split and then you're just going to put one person when they're offering you 5, it doesn't make a ton of sense.
So you don't think that's going anywhere?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think some people understand sort of the motivation behind that, but everyone I've spoken to is either like, we're going to fully boycott it or we're going to have 5 people.
Now, this is something that John Boehner did not want to do.
For a long time.
Correct? Yeah.
And Eli Lake in the Daily Beast actually had an amazing story today where his sources told him that it was also Mike Rogers and Darrell Issa and the chairman who've been investigating the committee also did not want the select committee, and they're actually feeling a little nervous about it, especially if nothing else new comes out. It's kind of like, all right, well, we did this, and now what's the point? It was the first time I had read that there was actually a significant amount of nerves, and Rogers is pretty close to Boehner, so I imagine that weighed into the decision.
Well, isn't that part of this decision? It's sort of implied that Boehner has lost confidence in Darrell Issa.
I think that that is part of it. It was certainly, even if it's not intended to be a rebuke of Mr. Issa was going to subpoena John Kerry. That was announced 2 days before Boehner said he was going to have a select committee, and they were super smart in picking Gowdy Trey Gowdy from Carolina. I had wrote a story yesterday about Mr. Gowdy. Democrats really like Trey Gowdy, and they really trust him, and they think he's like a fair, legit guy, which, I don't think has been like widely reported because so many people, he came in 2010, and he certainly is a partisan, but he has really good working relationships with Democrats who think that he, of anyone to do this, he's a guy who's coming at it with a sense of fairness, which I was kind of amazed that they said it all to me on the record, but it's true.
I mean, Democrats saying nice things about Gowdy on the record.
Yes.
Are Republicans still raising money on the select committee?
I believe
even
the
though
NRCC,
Gowdy says, please don't do that.
Yeah, I believe the NRCC still is, and
last time I checked on the website, they were up there.
The NRSC still is, and Boehner said yesterday in Texas that he had no control over the NRCC, which I found a bit not believable. I mean, it's his committee.
It's his committee, and he appoints the head of the committee, just like Nancy Pelosi does for the DCCC.
Right. So, that is certainly stepping on their message that they don't want this to be a political partisan court.
Yeah, that whole thing, the whole fundraising issue has turned out to be such a mess.
Yeah.
And then I just don't think that you get very far by saying, well, Democrats did it too. They fundraised off of, Katrina and gun control. And I mean, I get that point. I understand that precedent is there. But, when you have leadership involved in the Benghazi committee saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, it sort of steps on that. Like, either everyone be on the same page about it, or...
Right. No. Yeah. And no, they come out, and Boehner said this is going to be nonpartisan, it's going to be independent, objective, and tough, and not a sideshow. And then Trey Gowdy comes out and says this is an issue that, his phrase was, transcends politics.
Yeah.
And then you have your official committee.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the Koch brothers.
No, this is
not
official...
This is not Karl Rove. This is not an outside group. This is the National Republican Campaign Committee,
right?
Which, as you say, is a House committee to reelect Republicans to the House. They're the ones that are doing the fundraising on Benghazi. Then, they are certainly stepping on their own message and asking people to become. I love the phrase Benghazi watchdogs. Yeah. Become a Benghazi watchdog by sending a check to the NRCC. Kate Nocera, she covers all this mess every day. I mean, boy, you feel sorry for her because she's up there in the middle of it every day. But here today to tell us what's going on and inviting your questions and your comments at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
Enough.
Enough. Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday.
It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, Wednesday. Wrapping up here with Kate Nocera from Buzzfeed. And we're talking about, Benghazi Committee and other stuff that's going on the Hill. Peter?
Okay, so we're on Twitter at BP Show. And we encourage you to join in the conversation.
We always
join us there.
Yes.
So a couple of negative tweeters today. Just going to get this out of the way. So I've been giving the NBA playoff scores, right? Because they're happening.
Because the Wizards
apparently the NHL playoffs are going on too. I'm not sure what hockey is.
Oh my goodness!
I'm not familiar with hockey. But apparently there are playoffs happening right now. Shout out to Chicago, our fine listeners and viewers of WCPT. The Blackhawks won last night. They won their series against the Wild, so they move on.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Thank you. Thank you.
They played, but who did they play?
They were playing the Minnesota Wild, which I kid you not, I never even heard of that team.
Me neither.
I know the Blackhawks, never heard of the Wild. So they won. Congratulations, Chicago. I'm sorry that your Bulls lost to the Wizards here in Washington, D.C. But
we do not mean any disrespect for hockey or hockey players or hockey fans. Right.
Well,
so cheers.
We also have another comment from Pat who asks, what is Kate Nocera smoking? Democrats really like Trey Gowdy and they trust him? Seriously?
I don't know. I think
Kate, your retort.
I think Pat should read the story because it's not something I'm making up. If you read the story, there are 5 Democrats, a lot of them very liberal. Peter Welch from Vermont, Luis Gutierrez from Chicago, who all have very positive, good things to say about Mr. Gowdy and the way he conducts himself on the committee. I mean, these were all on the record. It wasn't something that I just pulled out of thin air. So
I'm gonna tweet that right now.
Yeah.
So if anybody doesn't know about it, they can go read it.
They can go read the story.
Again, at BP Show.
I know it's hard sometimes to get past the headline, but
all right. Now, looking ahead, there are the immigration issue keeps going up and down. And now the latest theory I hear from people is, for Republicans, let us get through our primaries, and then once we have the primaries behind us, any possible Tea Party challenges, we're going to get serious and we're going to do immigration reform by August. Do you buy that?
I don't. I just don't see how they have time to do it. And if they did small things that would then lead to a conference, the sort of Tea Party wing would really rebel. They don't want that at all. I know that Obama was speaking with enforcement officials yesterday, basically said that the window was closing very quickly. It's essentially, everyone thinks about the same timeline. It's essentially the next 2 to 3 months. If something's going to happen, something's going to happen.
But you think chances are not, right?
I'm not optimistic at all. Like, I talk to these guys every day, and I don't see any indication that there's like a huge why they have no motivation in the House. It's very different than someone who's running for president or someone who's running to represent an entire state. But in the House, they've been gerrymandered. Their districts are small. They don't have huge Hispanic populations in the district unless you're from California and you have a lot of business folks. I mean, they're not getting the sort of feedback at home that, like, this is the number one thing you need to be doing.
All right. Big story this week that President Obama's someone nominated by President Obama for a federal judgeship.
Yeah.
Run into a lot of trouble in the Senate.
Yeah.
And really getting hammered and beat up. But what's interesting here is not getting beat up by Republicans so much as getting beat up by Democrats.
Right.
And this is Mr. Boggs, right?
Yeah. Democrats are, they're willing to listen to him, but I think he's going to have a hard time getting through the Senate.
From Georgia? From Georgia.
His time as a state lawmaker is what they're specifically looking at. His opposition to same-sex marriage, his... I think he voted to have the
Michael Boggs, I was looking for his first name. Why did Obama nominate him with such a bad record?
It was a deal they made with Southern senators that he would nominate certain people from their state, and this is not to not have super progressive, put up a super progressive judge, is kind of a deal to get some people through, to get some of his other judgeships through. But Boggs is, I think he voted to have the Confederate flag continue to fly over the state capitol at one point as a lawmaker. I mean, these were a lot of the questions that senators had for this guy yesterday. And, the CBC is obviously ferociously opposed to this guy. Not that they have a say in his confirmation, but there's also a lot of, outside criticism coming at Obama's way for continuing to back this guy.
It was a quid pro quo deal with President Obama and Saxby Chambliss and I think one other senator in the South, and Democrats in the Senate are saying, well, we don't care what deal you made, Mr. President.
Yeah.
We don't like it. We're not going to go along with it.
Well, they also don't have the filibuster rules anymore, so it's a little bit easier.
Kate Nocera, so good to see you. Thank you for keeping track of all this stuff for us and telling us all about it. All right?
All right.
We'll come back again soon. Kate Nocera from Buzzfeed. Buzzfeed.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, we know Republicans are desperately afraid of running against Hillary Clinton in 2016. We didn't know how afraid until yesterday, on top of the Monica Lewinsky stuff and the Benghazi stuff. Now Karl Rove has taken things to a new low in American politics, accusing Hillary Clinton of suffering brain damage as a result of her fall last year, which is not only outrageous and disgusting, it's also weird because at the time, remember, Republicans were accusing Hillary of faking any health problems, and now they're accusing her of brain damage. Now, which is it? It can't be both. You know, folks, this is the kind of gutter politics that any decent Republican or Democrat should condemn, and Fox News should fire Karl Rove for making those comments. Hey, great show tomorrow. Senator Bob Casey from Pennsylvania here, as well as Dan Stone from National Geographic, and Julie Mason from POTUS Channel. All tomorrow. Come on back. We'll see you then.
Bill Press Show.